So good afternoon, everybody. I've got the probably the worst slot. Everybody's said that they've had the worst slot, but third after lunch and just before tea. So hopefully everybody's still awake. And can everybody hear me? Please, somebody put their hand up if I talk too fast, because I really do tend to gabble, and I can't see a clock, so I've absolutely no idea what's going on with the time. So yeah, please somebody put their hand up if I talk too fast. My name's Lyndsey Bywood. As you've already heard, I started off my career after studying languages as a social worker. Spent a few years doing that, and then decided to go back to languages and became a translator. Worked as an in-house translator. I'm not keeping up with my slide, am I? And then moved into subtitling, which was something I was always told was completely impossible to get into at college. It's not true. I'll talk about that later. Then I moved into being a project manager within the language environment, business development manager, head of production, and I'm now director of business development for a company called Voiceover International, which I'll talk a bit about later. I'm also the mother of 2 children, 2 stepchildren. I'm sure a lot of you are aware that lots of people go into translation because they want to have children. It's a very flexible career, and I can only support that. It's absolutely true. So, I work for a company, oh goodness, I think I need a tea break. So what I'm going to talk about first of all is the company that I work for. Obviously there are lots of companies on the market, there are lots of clients. I can only talk about the one I work for and the ones I've worked for in the past. But basically the same principles apply. We're talking about new areas of work for translators. I don't really think there are any, but what there are some areas that you may not have thought of, may not have been covered in whatever courses that you've studied. You may never have come across them or even know that they exist as a sort of place for you to work as linguists. So that's what I'm going to talk about. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about specifically translation, associated services, and then a little bit at the end, if I have time, about what we as a company are looking for in our freelancers, which I hope will be useful for people to get work and to actually get experience. And I don't think there'll be time for questions, but I will be on the panel later. I work for Voiceover International. It's a company which was founded in 1958 under the name of Radco. It's a family business, and it was founded by Dr. N.J. Darwood, who is the Penguin Classics translator for the Quran. He's a very well-respected linguist. It's run by his 2 sons. It's quite an unusual company. We're in 17 countries across Europe and the Middle East. We have 20 in-house linguists in the UK. We also have other linguists in other branch offices elsewhere. In the UK, we have French, German, Italian, Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, and Japanese. We have a freelance pool of about 4,000 in the UK, and then freelance pools associated with our branch offices. But we regularly used about 300 translators and interpreters. Mostly translators, but we do use some interpreters as well, and other sort of associated resources. So these are the services that we offer, and they pretty much cover all the services across the sort of language use, subtitling, translation area. As I said, I can only talk about what we do and what I've done elsewhere. There are obviously, as they say, other language companies that will employ you and you do different things, but I hope this is going to be enough. We do translation, obviously. We do typesetting and artwork. We do subtitling. We do a lot of subtitling. It's what we're most known for. We do voiceover work, dubbing work, transcription, translation from tape, which I'll talk about a bit later, which is a very good source of income and something that not a lot of people offer. We do interpreting, and we do copywriting, and we do website localization. So first of all, to go to subtitling, the thing that we're most known for. This is a screenshot from a proprietary subtitling package, which I'm happy to talk to anybody about afterwards if they want to ask me. You can see, I haven't got a pointer, but the figure in the top left is what's called the in time. That's the time code at which the subtitle appears on the screen. The figure in the middle is the duration that the subtitle will be on the screen for, so how long it's there for the people to read. And the figure on the right is called the out time. That's when it disappears. You can see the text, and also you can see some numbers in the picture. That's the time code of the picture. So basically a subtitling file is just text and time code, and the extra bit that you do as a subtitler or the main extra bit, is to tell the software when to put the text on screen. It's as simple as that. It's not that easy to do, but it's pretty simple. So our freelance subtitlers, they work in two ways. They can either work at home with no software in Microsoft Word, which everybody obviously has. And the way that works is that we create what's called a template file, or sometimes it's called a master file or a spotting list. And that would be in English. And that would be a file with English text and time codes, which you would then import into your Word software and basically translate over, ignoring the numbers. Or we can get rid of the numbers, I mean, whatever works for people. So it's a myth that you can't be a subtitler without software. You can be a subtitler with Microsoft Word. However, it is also a myth that anybody can be a subtitler, because you do need certain skills. You need to be able to respect character restrictions, obviously. The speed at which we hear is not the speed at which we read. And I'm sure you've all had the experience of seeing bad subtitles, or subtitles that are too fast, subtitles that miss stuff out, that's material to the plot. So the skill as of a subtitler is to be able to edit the text to fit the time available. And that's what you need to be able to do if you're working in Word. You also need to be able to use a video file, because you need to be able to check that what you've written matches what's on the video. So for example, if somebody's talking about a rabbit and there's a picture of a rabbit and you haven't put rabbit in that subtitle, then that's very bad, obviously. If rabbit comes in the next shot when they're actually talking about a frog, we're not very happy with that. Subtitling using Microsoft Word is paid per 1,000 words in the same way as translation. That can make it quite a low-paid occupation, but not everybody is motivated by money, and a lot of the people that work for us are motivated by the content that we have. We might have Hollywood movies or good drama series, or just things that are more interesting than, say, I don't know, the previous speaker was talking about additional areas of work. You might have always done annual reports or always done patents or something. You might quite fancy doing Ugly Betty, or or even just a DVD about health and safety, for example. The other way of doing subtitling is to own software, which would be very welcome for me as an employer. There are not enough people out there that own their own software, because it can be a big investment and you do need more training. And if you own your own software, you would then do the whole process, which includes the timing, so telling the software where to put the time codes. That's paid per minute, so it's per minute of film, sorry. It's booming. It needs all the same skills, but it also needs the skill of timing, which is a completely separate skill. Now, we're quite happy as an organisation to train people. If they're happy to shell out for the software and the hardware that they need, we're completely happy to train them. Some people aren't, some people are. Again, if anybody's interested or desperately interested, please come and see me afterwards and I can give them some details. Software, you can get free software on the net. It's not very good, but you can. And then it can go up to about £2,000. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not a massive investment if it's something that you're going to do over a number of years, but it is quite a lot of money to find, especially if you're just starting off. So voiceover is the next thing. A lot of people think that they can do voiceover because they speak a language or that they're a mother tongue. I mean, obviously, we only employ mother tongue translators. There's one exception to that rule, which I'll come to in a minute. But in order to do voiceover, you really need to be trained. You need to be an actor, or at least have been trained in public speaking. It's a bit like interpreting, I guess. Know how to use your voice. I'd be a dreadful voiceover. I have an accent and I speak too fast and I stumble. I'd be dreadful. Some people have an aptitude, but it's very, very rare that you can just walk in off a street. You also need to be able to use a microphone and not be scared in a studio. Very similar, I think, for conference interpreting skills. However, we do need people who can translate for voiceover, which is a separate skill. You need to be able to translate in such a way that when it is read, it sounds good. That doesn't always happen. And again, that's sort of more on the more creative side. All translation is creative, obviously, but it's more on the more creative side, because it has to read well. So that's a sort of small different area. If you want to be a voiceover, you need to have a show reel. So you need to go into a studio and record a piece that you can give to your clients. You need to invest. So you need to go pay somebody to let you record and edit and mix it, and then you can give it to your clients. And that's great. We desperately need pretty much all mother tongue voiceovers. Maybe not French and German, but we need English. We need pretty much everybody else. So if anybody's interested, again. Sorry, I've missed script following. That's something that anybody can do if they have an interest. When we record a voiceover, we have somebody in the studio who's a native speaker, who has the script on their lap, who has a pencil, and who follows to make sure that all the words are correctly pronounced, all the words are in the right order, all the words are correctly translated, so that when they come to editing, because obviously our sound engineers, they don't speak 26 languages, most of them only speak one. So when they come to edit, they know that the recording is perfect, so that there's no slips. And that's something that we would need a linguist to do. You don't have to be a translator, but you do need to be a linguist, and you do need to have good attention to detail. Dubbing, again, it's the same sort of skills. We need translators, we need script adapters. I'm sure you're all aware that for lip sync dubbing, the translation has to match the mouth movements of the characters on screen, and sometimes it does and sometimes it's not so good. We need people to do that. That's another separate skill, to actually adapt the language, translate it and adapt it so that it matches the mouth movements on screen. We need people to do that, and we need people to script follow, which is even more taxing than it is for voiceover, obviously, because you're also checking for lip synchronization. Translation from tape is the only time when we would not use a mother tongue speaker. The reason that we have this work is because somebody has gone off to Tunisia and filmed a whole load of people talking, or a whole load of scenes, or something in a foreign country where they do not speak the language. So they filmed all this stuff because it looks great. And they may well have had a script, or they might not have, or they might have stopped people in the street and done vox pops. It looks great, and they've got hours upon hours upon hours of film, and they have no clue what's on it. They need to know. So they need to know, is that just a cameraman saying, over there, over here, oh no, my battery's dead? Or is it somebody saying, something desperately important to their documentary, to their drama, or to whatever it is they're making? And they don't generally, our clients, but which, these would be production companies or filmmakers, they don't have those kind of language skills. So what they do is they ring me up and they say, I've got 20 hours of what I think is Arabic, but may not be. Can you do something for me by Friday? It happens all the time. You're laughing, but it really does. So then we need somebody who's quickly going to sit with their video recorder, or increasingly with a digital file. I mean, hardly anybody has video recorders anymore, and is going to listen to that and produce an English transcript with time code references. So who's saying what when, in English which is intelligible but doesn't have to be perfect. So what we really need is the person to perfectly understand what's on the tape, and to be able to render that into a reasonable English, so the editor can say, brilliant, that's rubbish, that's great, I'm going to cut here, I'm going to cut there, I'm going to cut the other. So that's translation from tape, and that's paid per 1,000 words as well. It can be very arduous, but some people love it, and it's paid at a much higher rate than translation usually. Transcription. Can I have a show of hands for English mother tongue? Okay, quite a lot, yeah. I mean, transcription is something that we as a company mostly do for English mother tongue. I'm sure that other stuff needs transcribing, but I wouldn't know where to go to find it. Transcription, again, it's the process of rendering the spoken word into the written word, usually in the same language. We get court proceedings. Again, we get lots of things that are sort of rushes that filmmakers have made. Interviews, lots of interviews. It's really regular, steady work. So if you're translating and you're translating something that's a bit of a niche and you don't have regular work, it's something that's quite good to fill the gaps. Again, it can be quite arduous. You need a foot pedal machine, which is about £50, and you need a headset, which is an extra, I don't know, not much, £20 or £30, and you need software, which can be free. And you need to be able to type, obviously. But if you can type, which most people can now, it's a really good way of sort of bolstering your income if that's what you need. And interpreting, I think we've covered, but we do all types of interpreting. Other services. I've got no notes, so I can't remember what I was going to say. We have linguists that go to clients to check things, to check copy, to check adverts, to check layouts. We have linguists who go to editing suites. Once your director has his 20 hours of Arabic translated into English, he then needs to cut it together. Then he needs to check that he's cut it in the right place and that it all makes sense. So then we'll send somebody then to the edit suite. He'll say, yeah, yeah, that's all makes sense, it flows, or they say, no, actually you've got a sentence of something that isn't even Arabic in there, or whatever. So that's something that we send people all over London, all over Soho anyway, to edit suites, and they're paid by the hour. We also have people who come to check captioning. We do captioning, so foreign language captioning, especially in non-Latin scripts. And we'll need somebody, if we don't have the language, so for example, we don't have Korean, somebody comes along and says, yeah, you know, you haven't missed a dot or a stroke and turned it into something obscene in the client's language. It is what it should be. Lots and lots of checking, people in checking roles. Other possible areas of work, project management. I became a project manager quite early on in my translation career. It's really important to know what you're managing. So we prefer our project managers to have some kind of language background, and preferably to have worked as a translator or a subtitler or in some kind of language profession. Most people are like that, most clients. So you could work, if you decide that translation is not for you, or if you decide, I hate to say it, you want to earn more money, because they're generally better paid than staff translator jobs, project management jobs. Work for a translation agency, work in a subtitling company, work in a voiceover agency, work in a DTP or an artwork studio, TV stations, corporate clients. All those people have a need for people who understand the translation process and can value good translation and quality translation to manage their work for them. So that's something to bear in mind. And other related work areas. Audio description. Can I show of hands who knows what audio description is? Oh, well done. Audio description, oh, yep, got some. Audio description is an access service for visually impaired people, whereby somebody describes the action on the screen in between the gaps in dialogue, so that they too can experience whatever it is, the film or the DVD. It's becoming quite popular. If you go and look at home, one of your DVDs will have audio description on it. I can guarantee it. Just a mainstream DVD that you might have bought or rented or been given. It's a service you need to train. The courses are about £1,000 upwards, but it's a creative language service. It obviously doesn't involve translation, but access services and translation are always sort of lumped together. It involves creativity, it involves writing, it involves editing, and it also involves speaking. You can write audio description scripts. You can also be an audio describer, which means that you actually speak them. And they're recorded. I've got an example, which I'll come to in a second. It'll be a bit more clear. Proofreading, everybody knows about. Again, I don't know about proofreading in other languages, but proofreading for English mother tongue, it's always very much in demand. You can do a course. They range from about £200 to about £500. You can do them correspondence. You can do them in person. Some are better regarded than others. And copywriting. In my company, we do a lot of copywriting. We do translation copywriting and we do English language copywriting. It's fantastically creative, very well paid, and very stimulating and challenging. And it's something I would recommend personally if you're that way inclined. And again, you can do courses. They range from about £300 to £500, but I'm sure there are also more expensive ones. Again, you probably get what you pay for in those sorts of courses. Games testing is sort of the other end of the spectrum. If you like playing computer games and you're a translator or your mother tongue not English, you can earn a reasonable living testing games. It's not massively well paid, but there's lots of work. So if you like it and you like playing games, it's sort of a reasonable way to earn and to sort of fill the gaps again, a bit like transcription. You generally have to go to the client site to do it. But it can be a big chunk of work because you've got a very large game. It takes hours upon hours upon hours of testing. And vendor management. Most translation organisations of any size have some kind of vendor management team which look after their resources and look after their vendors. And again, it really helps if you've got some kind of experience or some kind of insight into translators and what makes them tick and what's important to them and what their issues are. So if you're interested in people, if you're a people person and you don't necessarily want to sit at home in your back bedroom translating, you might want to be out and talking to people on the phone every day, that's a really good place to be as well. You need to be good at negotiating and you need to like phone work. I'm going to see if I can try and play this audio description clip. This is actually a video that we did in-house. We were given, one of our clients gave us, I do have permission. And and it's an access video. Yeah, I haven't tried yet. I know it's not going to work. Oh, is it? Okay. It's audio described before the dialogue, which is unusual. Normally it's audio described between the dialogue, but you'll see what I mean if I can get it to play. Yeah, it's embedded. So.
Is it play by itself?
No, it's I usually do play movie. No. No. What are we doing for time? I'm nearly time. I can show that to anybody who wants to see it. I can also give you some links, so I can. Okay. I can give people links to. There's lots of samples on the internet, and as I say, one of your DVDs at home will have audio description. Just check on the back where the subtitles usually are. So briefly, what we're looking for in our resources, in our translators, a good CV. It needs to be proofread. If I find a CV with a typo, I put it straight in the bin. If you can't get your CV right, how do I know you're going to get my translations right? You'd be amazed at the number of CVs I get that have just awful typos in them. So please, please, please proofread your CVs. Write them in English. I know you're not all English mother tongue, but I don't speak 30 languages, and neither does my vendor management team. So write them in English, get them checked by an English native. Everybody knows one. Send them in English, please. State your mother tongue at the top and in the body of the email if you're emailing. It's really frustrating. I get about 20 CVs a day. It's really frustrating to have to dig around to try and find what mother tongue is this person and do I need them. Never, ever offer to translate into more than one language. I will put your CV in the bin. Don't believe that anybody can translate into more than one language. Please feel free to come up and argue with me afterwards. But that's my personal belief, and that's my personal philosophy, and that's our company philosophy. State your qualifications and experience. It's an obvious one, but sometimes I have to dig. I have to look at the bottom of page 3 behind a whole load of jobs and things that I'm not really interested in. I want to know, where did you study? What have you studied? What is your translation experience? I don't want to know that you went round Bolivia. That's great. I don't want to know. And please put your name and your language in the file name of your CV. Get lots and lots of emails that say, please find my CV attached. And then it just says cv.doc. I just say, that's really no use to me at all. And how to get experience. I think this has been covered earlier, but we are always happy to take people for low-paid or unpaid placements. Go and get a placement, ring round. All companies are desperate for work, for hands. You might end up, I've got an intern at the moment, she's cleaning my database, making tea and doing the odd bit of subtitling, but she is doing some subtitling because we always find something for people to do. But personally, from my point of view as an employer, I don't want anybody to come for less than 3 months because it's just not worth my while. I'm happy to do 3 months 2 days a week or 3 months 3 days a week, but not. I know that Westminster are always contacting me wanting placements for 30 hours, or I can't remember what the figure is, but it's very short. It's just no use to me at all. And free work. Lots of people are looking for free translation. I think Amnesty is still looking. There are other organisations, charities, that would be delighted to have some free translation work, and it looks great on your CV if you've got nothing else. I think that's me finished because I also have 2 lovely clips to show you of some of our work, but it doesn't seem to be working, so maybe after the break we might have a look. I have Ugly Betty in Arabic and I have Barney in Russian. And that's it.